Now for a limited time, the new $1.99 crispy tender wraps are here at Sonic. Who could deny a crispy chicken tender with bold flavors like hickory barbecue and cheesy Baja? And we can't forget the crisp lettuce and melty cheese to make the perfect bite. Wrap yourself up with some TLC, tender, love, and chicken for only $1.99. Sonic $1.99 crispy tender wraps. Tax not included, limited time only at participating Sonic drive-ins.
So our podcast is called Right and Wrong.
Are these your notes?
These
Are these your notes about what we're going to say?
Anything.
Nailed it.
Is the short answer.
So how many novels did you not finish?
Oh my God, so many.
It was perfect. What's she talking about? This is nonsense.
Ooh, a spicy question. I love it.
This is it, guys. The big secret to getting published is you have to write a good book. You heard it here first. Hello and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. As always, I'm Jamie, and today I have the great honour of being joined by GQ columnist, author, that blind date blogger, the Guyliner himself, Justin Myers. Hi, Justin. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You've got a great list of titles there. I was thinking it was very Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I don't have a Wikipedia page, thankfully, but if I did, it would be very interesting.
I'll get right on that.
Oh, God, no. The last thing I want.
Let's kick off with your latest news, the release of your third novel, The Fake Up. For me and everyone listening, what's it all about?
So it is a rom-com on the surface of it. I've never written a straight-up rom-com before, although my first two books were kind of sold maybe as romantic comedies. I don't actually think that they were. This definitely is. And it's about a couple called Dylan and Flo who've been going out for a few years, and they're one of those couples who all their friends think that they're in a toxic relationship. They're perfectly happy being with each other, but their friends think it's a toxic relationship, and external pressures force them to begin arguing, and so they break up. But they miss each other and they end up getting back together. But the twist is that Flo is an aspiring singer-songwriter. Well, she is a singer-songwriter. She kind of has a YouTube channel, but she's fairly low-key. And Dylan is an aspiring actor, just doing kind of, at the beginning of the book, his job is one of those amazing tour guides who have to dress up and show people around haunted bits of London.
Oh, cool.
But obviously he wants to be, Olivier or whatever.
Yeah.
And their careers take off just as they're getting back together. And so they find that they have to pretend to be broken up for the sake of their careers.
Perfect rom-com
And
setup.
hilarity ensues.
Yes. Excellent. Well, it sounds great. I'm really excited for it to come out and to get my hands on it. It's really interesting seeing the evolution of your books. And by that I mean so your first book, The Last Romeo, which came out 2018, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
That was first person, past, and very much through the lens of a blog, something which you have some experience with.
Yeah.
What was the catalyst for you sort of deciding to write your first novel?
Well, I had toyed with the idea of writing a novel for years. I mean, I've written for a long time. Even before I really knew I wanted to be a writer, I would write in, when you get a book and it has when you're a child and it has the blank bits, obviously when you open the cover, it just has blank bits before you get to the actual pages. I would write stories in them. So there was always a need to be in books in one way or another. And I don't think I really, if I'm very honest, I don't think I had the confidence to write a book myself, or the time, or the money, because it does take up a lot of your time, and time really is money, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I was asked, a guy called Dom at Little Brown emailed me one day and said, have you ever thought about writing a novel? And I was like, have I? And he just said he thought the time was right for a commercial gay novel, and he would just love to see if I had any ideas. And I did. I think the first novel is always going to be, unless you have a really great idea that you've harbored for years, then I think your first novel is always going to be semi-autobiographical. Write what you know is a cliche, but it's a cliche because it's true.
Yeah.
And I came up with the idea of The Last Romeo, which I didn't want to be too autobiographical. In fact, in retrospect, I wish I'd made it much less autobiographical. I came up with the idea and sent it to him, and he said, "Sounds good. Can you do me a chapter and a few scenes from later in the book?" And I did them, and I got a book deal, and I still can't believe it, because it doesn't happen that way. Obviously, you have to write a full manuscript, and I know how it works, and so I still can't believe that that's what happened. But that is what happened, and then I had to go and write the thing.
And how was it writing it?
Great. I'm trying to remember now whether I was less or more terrified than I was writing the ones that came after. I think a bit less terrified. I didn't know what I was doing, and to a degree I still don't. And I just went with it. And I've said this before to friends, but once I got away from the autobiographical bits, it was much more fun to write. The first half is quite, close-ish to what actually happened to me, with a few embellishments to make it more interesting and, make characters more character-y than actual people.
Sure.
I had to invent a horrible ex, because my ex-boyfriend was actually very nice.
Damn him.
Yes. And but once it went off into fantasy, once my imagination was allowed to run wild, if you like, it was much more fun. I think when you're writing something that is based a little bit on your own life, you feel a responsibility to your history and to the events that happened to you, and you wonder, this was a big moment for me. Should it be in the book because it was a big moment? Or should it be in the book because it's actually good enough to be in a book? So it could be quite brutal at times, editing pivotal moments of my life because they didn't make good fiction. Terrifying.
Yeah.
But once I went a bit bonkers in the second half, it was perfectly fine.
So is that why with your second book, which is The Magnificent Sons, and then also the Fake Up, is that why you sort of moved away from that kind of area a bit? You even changed, it's third person, Magnificent Sons, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I wanted different perspectives in Magnificent Sons because it has two main characters, really. I mean, it has one main character, Jake, who is a guy who's on the cusp of coming out as bisexual quite late in life. He's 29 at the beginning of the book. And his younger brother, Trick, who is gay and is 17 and comes out in the very first chapter, and he's like an all singing, all dancing, all voguing young gay man who on the surface of it seems to be very confident and comfortable in his own skin and has an amazing array of supportive friends, which his elder brother Jake doesn't have. And they are kind of enemies that they don't really know why. And I really wanted to get into the heads of both of them and talk about what it means to be gay or bi or trans or queer generally, I suppose, from different perspectives. Because the thing about the LGBTQ plus community is that we are, we have that umbrella over us, but we are packed full of individuals with very different backstories, and even the one experience that unifies us all coming out is extremely different for everybody, even if you are in the same family, which is what I want to show. And I couldn't really, I think if I'm honest, I was a bit scared of writing in first person from more than one person. If you know what I mean. It scared me a bit. So I thought with third person, if I have a bit of distance there, then maybe it will be easier. It turns out I was wrong. It wasn't really that much easier, but it was at least, it was fun. It was definitely fun. And the Fake Up is the same. That's third person, but two points of view, Dylan and Flo.
Okay. So dialing it back a bit, as you mentioned, you've been writing forever, not necessarily novels, but you've stretched your writing muscles across many different styles, genres. You've worked with The Guardian, BuzzFeed, Irish Times, of course, GQ, who you are a columnist for currently. And you said you've always wanted to be a writer. How did your kind of career reach the point where you became a columnist for, I can't say columnist today, for GQ?
It's funny you should say columnist, because there's a really prominent radio presenter who says it like that. And I was once on their show and they said GQ columnist. And I was like, is that how you actually say it? I'd never heard it before, but okay, if you're saying it too, maybe it is.
Oh no.
Maybe we should introduce it. Anyway, how did I get to that point? mainly through ignoring what was staring me right in the face for a very, very long time. I was good at English and stuff at school, that old cliche, and I was great at languages. And languages, if I'm very honest, felt like they could take me further away from my hometown than English could. So I pursued that. I did French at university because I was good at it, which probably wasn't a good idea. I toyed with the idea of doing journalism, but I'm from a working class background and I didn't have any connections or know anybody. And I applied to do work experience when I was about 14 at the local paper, but somebody else got the placement who was related to someone who worked there. Shocking.
Okay, yeah.
My first taste of nepotism. And I had to go work in a travel agent, French. So it was a long road of me not really knowing what I wanted to do, but having a feeling that I really did want to write. And when I was 24, so 22 years ago, I saw an advert online. We're looking for writers. It won't be paid, but it will be fun. And they always say you shouldn't work for free, but this is the very early days of the internet when it was still kind of the Wild West and no one was really getting paid for anything. And I sent in a couple of examples and they really loved it. And I thought, well, maybe I can do it then. And, a couple of years later, I moved to London exclusively. I lived in Edinburgh at the time and I moved to London to try and be a writer. And it just kind of snowballed from there. I got a job with a digital agency, writing corporate stuff and writing stuff for teenagers. I did little freelance bits here and there, but really what really took off was, and funnily enough, it's the epigraph of my first book, The Last Romeo. I don't know if you've seen The Dark Knight Rises. I have. Where Tom Hardy as Bane says, "No one cared who I was until I put on the mask."
Yeah.
Well, that's the epigraph of The Last Romeo because it was I broke up with my boyfriend and began an anonymous blog, The Guyliner, to write about going on dates with men in a way that I thought probably hadn't been done before. And it took off and people took notice and, really liked my writing. And it literally did snowball from there where I started getting writing gigs in the nationals and in magazines. And I'd had a pretty successful career before I was the Guyliner, but not one that anyone knew about. I worked in TV for a bit and I worked at the digital agency and that kind of thing and had a few freelance jobs and had been published and stuff. But it was a whole new ball game when the Guyliner came into my life.
Wow. That's a really cool story. I also love the idea that Bane's supervillain Tom Hardy inspired your dating blog.
And I haven't seen the film. I haven't. It was a meme. I saw it on a meme. I'm so online. It's ridiculous. I saw it in a meme and I thought, that's brilliant. That's so true. It was just honestly my entire career in a nutshell. Nobody gave two hoots about my writing. When I say two hoots, the wider public, I suppose, nobody out there really knew anything about me until I decided to hide my identity.
Yeah, works perfectly.
It did.
And so off the back of the very successful blog, and then you started working with The Guardian on a similar thing, or was that the same thing?
So what happened with The Guardian was I became advice columnist at Gay Times about 2011, 2012, I think. And with writing about dates and dating and having a dating column in Gay Times, then it turned into an advice column. I suppose I built up this idea around me that I was somehow an expert in dating. Just doing something a lot doesn't necessarily make you an expert in it. But then after a few years, I met someone. And so I did write about retrospective, dates, but I was running out of material. And I really enjoyed The Guardian's blind date column, which has been running for about 12 years, I think now. First of all, in their weekend magazine and now in their Saturday supplement. And basically, for anyone who doesn't know, they send just random people write in wanting to go on this blind date. They send them out for a free meal at a restaurant and wait for sparks to fly or damp squibs to get damper or whatever. And they're always asked the same questions, which is a wonderful format, really, because you find yourself expecting, certain answers. And these answers are very easy to analyze. You can work out a lot about a person from how they answer these stock questions. And I used to talk about it on Twitter, every Saturday when it would go up. I'd, pull out a few highlights and tweet about them and talk to other people. And I thought, there's something here. I got a lot of attention for it, and I was still anonymous at this point, and I don't love attention, but I like it when people read my writing. So it's quite a weird world to live in. And I just started doing a short, really short at first, précis of what happened in the day, and picked out a couple of answers and kind of ever so gently tore them to shreds. Just like with the just the tiniest but quite sharp fangs. And it became even more successful, I think, than my dating had been. And its peak, it was just ridiculous how many views it was getting. My site would crash all the time, and it became a Saturday morning ritual, and people really, really enjoyed it. And it did lead to me actually writing for The Guardian, eventually. When they noticed it was happening, it became a thing. They had me in and for a meeting, and I was still anonymous at the time. And it just became, I think that's what most people, because the dating is so long ago now, but I think most people know me for that now. And I still do it. Not at the moment because I'm writing my fourth book, but I still do it every so often when I can. I still really enjoy it, and people still love it. So why not?
It is fun. It is. There's a certain quality to the way that you eviscerate things very delicately. That's very enjoyable to read.
Yeah, the thing about it is that it's actually very rarely about the daters themselves. Yeah. It is about me and the people reading the column. So we talk about, dating tropes and rituals, and I talk about my own experiences and society as a whole. It is very rarely about the things that the daters actually say, and never about things like what they look like, or occasionally I will mock what they're wearing, but very rarely.
Sometimes you just have to.
Sometimes it's unavoidable. I remember one woman years ago, in her photo, she was wearing a bright jumper and carrying a hedgehog.
A hedgehog?
Yeah, a live one. No.
Thank God it was alive.
An actual hedgehog. So, but sometimes it's unavoidable. Yeah. But really, it is about the world in general, seen through this lens of the weird things people do when they go on a date, and how they react and what they say after. Yeah. And I'm quite proud of quite a lot of it. Some of my best writing is in there somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. And it's amazing how that sort of one thing that you were doing as a bit of a hobby, bit of fun, has sort of opened up so many different avenues for you, and brought your career so far from there. Yeah,
because when you write for a living, as I have been doing now for 2 decades, but because writing for a lot of people is a hobby, like you say, or a side hustle, as some people say, or whatever. And when it becomes your main job, as it has been for a long time now, you think that you can never find a way to make it, a leisure experience again, which is what the blog turned out to be. It was, I started The Guyliner itself back in 2010 because the writing I was doing, like for corporate clients and stuff, just was not grabbing me. It was work, to earn money and pay rent on the flat I just got for myself. So I wasn't really, like you were saying, the muscle wasn't being stretched in the way I wanted it to be. It was kind of all very surface level, keeping me going, but I wasn't really actively enjoying it and having the freedom to write what I wanted. And that's the great thing about having a blog, really, is it's my world, it's my tone of voice, it's not even my opinions, really. It's just it all belongs to me, and I can write whatever I like there, within reason.
Well, I've heard a similar story with lots of authors who have not necessarily been working on the corporate side of things, but they have written a lot of books, and a lot of books they've submitted and been rejected. And then the book that finally breaks through is when they say, I'm going to stop looking at the market. I'm going to stop looking at what's trending, at what's popular. I'm just going to write the thing that I want to write, set where I want to set it, with the characters I want to write. And that often is just the one that shines through.
Yeah, I can imagine. I don't have any of those, yet, touch wood. I don't have any of those, unloved manuscripts in a drawer. I don't really have anything in a drawer. All of my work is pretty much out there. I have
That's great.
Early sketches for novels that will probably come one day. yeah, I can imagine that. I think that there is a release really from just going with it. I think it really helps you to find your own tone as well. And that's probably one of the things that I found tricky about pivoting toward fiction or, writing novels, is that it's not always you. And I think that my tone on my website is quite, it's inescapably me. It's very me. And in the first book, that was kind of all right, although I made him an unlikable character to some degree, I think, to get away from me a bit. Not that I'm a particularly likable person, but I went to a bit of an extreme with him. But it really helps you find your own tone, and that, like I say, that was what was tricky. Trying to put yourself in the mind of a character, and remember that it's not, you're not writing your manifesto. You are writing a piece of art, if you like, that is meant to entertain.
Yes, exactly. Always remember that your writing is supposed to be interesting and entertaining.
Yes.
Am I right in thinking, changing topic a little bit here, that you had a hand in the TV adaptation of This Is Going to Hurt?
Yeah.
That was a great show. How did you end up being involved with that?
I am friends with Adam Kay.
Wow, name drop.
I know. We met on Twitter, as so many good friends do now, which is one of the plus points of Twitter that I think people forget. Mm-hmm. Met in real life a few years ago and have done a few bits together. And he just asked if I wanted to kind of add my, what would you call it? I don't want to say expertise, because obviously he is literally an expert and a genius. Yeah. But he's quite a collaborative person, and so he just wanted to know if I was interested in being involved. And obviously I was. I mean, this is years ago now, obviously, because it takes a long time to get things on TV.
Mm-hmm. So what did that entail? What did you...
Introducing new dirty drinks from Sonic. Whatever your fave is, you can now make it dirty. Fanta fans can make it dirty. Dr. Pepper devotees can make it dirty. Even ocean water aficionados can make it dirty. You name it, we can make it dirty. Now you may be asking yourself, how do you make a Sonic drink dirty? By infusing it with a delicious blend of coconut flavor, sweet cream, and lime, of course. What were you thinking? Get your brain out of the gutter. New dirty drinks, now at Sonic. Fanta and Dr. Pepper are used under license. Limited time only at participating Sonic drive-ins.
Do you do?
So I was a script consultant. Mm-hmm. And basically, in a nutshell, that means that Adam sends you the brilliant stuff he's already done, and you read it, and you say, oh, what about this joke here? Or what about doing this way? And he either takes on board your suggestions or he doesn't.
Okay. So it's sort of like a critique.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit like, kind of workshopping it in the very early stages and looking at how a scene might play out. Okay. And, suggest lines. And obviously it's all on Adam. He's just done so well with it. It's, it's such a brilliant adaptation and just so clever the way he, and that is the real challenge, because that was his story.
Yeah. And
the way he's done it in such a way, like fictionalizing it, obviously, to make it feel very much still like he owns that story and lived that life, and yet creating a character that could be so many doctors and the situations they've been in. But yeah, in short, it was basically just like, suggesting jokes, that kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah. All that good stuff. Was that the first time you've worked on anything like that, on sort of screenwriting and stuff?
Actually, speaking of things in a drawer, I did write a script for somebody years ago, and it never came to anything, but we didn't do anything with it. But that was my first time with the big boys, yeah. Oh,
I see. And would you like to do more?
Yeah, I think so. It was something I really liked. I think I definitely have an aptitude maybe for dialogue. There's definitely something in me that likes putting dialogue together and scenes. When I'm writing a book, actually, I'm very much imagining it like it's a movie playing in my head anyway. So I kind of write with that. And sometimes I can get a bit hung up on over-narrating everything, what's going on, and every look and every muscle twitch, which I'm trying to train myself out of. So I've definitely got a screenwritery head, I think.
Well, great. When they make all of the movies of your books, you can be at the helm for each of them.
God, no, I want them to do well. I don't know if I want to be involved.
I've heard that before, because I've spoken to authors whose the rights have been sold for their films, and some people love to be front and center. They're like, yeah, I want to be all over this, and other people are just please let someone else do it, because like I don't know if I can go back, and I don't know if I can deal with making the changes that need to be made, so I'm just going to let someone else take that.
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily that for me. I think for The Last Romeo, I'm just too close to the subject, and I feel like I spent a lot of time writing that story, either with my own dating blog, and then doing the manuscript itself, whatever.
Yeah,
I'm a bit too close for it.
Well, I'm sure you can't say much about it, but you do have a fourth book in the works. How are you feeling at the moment writing that?
I am enjoying it. I've said that as if I don't usually. It's my first. I hadn't written fiction for 2 years, because I finished The Fake Up just before the pandemic hit. The first draft, I finished that January 2020.
Right.
And hadn't touched, apart from edits to The Fake Up, I hadn't touched fiction. And so I started writing this one, and I was like, what the hell? Why is it? This is ridiculous. What? All this fictional person, thoughts, dreams. It was a bit tough at first, but yeah, I'm 60,000 words in.
Okay, nice.
And I'm aiming to end on 80. I want a brisk novel this time. The Fake Up's quite long, and it's first person as well, which is a return to first person after 2 books without it. So tough.
Okay.
It's not tough, really. I'm just saying that to make my job sound harder.
So you're kind of mixing things up, but also kind of going back to a more familiar rhythm with the style.
I think I considered what to do, and whether it should be in first or third person. And I thought, I really want to stay with this character all the time, for better or worse. And I think it would really benefit from, you can still do inner monologues and stuff in third person. You just write it in third person. But I really wanted to inhabit this character and all his, spoiler, insecurities and idiosyncrasies. So I have gone back to first person. I actually, halfway through, I forgot and wrote like half a chapter in third person. Oh no, hang on.
You read it back and you're really confused. What happened here?
Yeah. Unconscious or something. Yeah, bizarre.
Well, looking forward to seeing what that's like.
So am I.
Don't say that. Come on.
First draft, though. It's just
first draft.
It's just so weird.
The vomit draft. Do you agree with the vomit draft approach?
I've never heard that before.
Oh, really?
I like that. A little bit. I have been told by my agent and by my editors that my first draft doesn't look like most people's first draft, and that they are very polished. So I do try to make them as shelf ready. I think it was Adam actually that told me once, don't hand anything over, don't say it's the final draft unless you would be happy to see it on the shelf at Waterston's. And he's right. So I try and make it, my first drafts of any book would absolutely in no way be ready for the shelf anywhere. Sure. But I try and make them as close to it as possible, just because I need that sense of completeness, I think. But the editing is actually my favourite part of it all.
Okay. I sometimes like editing. Sometimes I don't. Depends on my mood.
Yeah, what I like about it is the collaborative, because I'm a very... Apparently this is unusual, but I don't show anybody my work at all until it goes to, my agent sometimes, the last couple of books, but or my editor. No one sees it. I don't, hand pages round friends, or I don't ask anyone's opinion until my editor sees it. So it's quite a lonely, insular experience until it goes to my editor. And I think the reason I do it like that is I don't want to be, I don't want anyone else's view on it to interfere and make me accidentally take out something that is great and putting something that is not great.
Yeah.
I think it's best to just have it, even if I'm, like the vomit draft, even if I'm putting something in there that I'm thinking, this is never going to make the final draft, but I can't think how to fix this problem. So I'll put this in there so it looks like I've tried. And then it all comes out in the edit, which, it's quite scary at first, but, getting that initial, they call it a letter, don't they? You get a letter from your editor when they've read the first draft, and it's like 4 pages, and you hope it's good news. And they always start with the first paragraph is always, "Oh, congratulations, blah, this is great," and then 3,000 words of, "Here's what you've done wrong,"
and then they finish with a, "But overall, it's great."
Yes, but
we call that the
usually
shit sandwich.
Yes, exactly. But for the fake up especially. Everything that Cal, my editor, came back with, I knew was wrong already.
Yeah.
So I was quite relieved that we were on the same page about it. There wasn't anything that I'd thought, oh no, that's really great, I don't want to change that. And so it was really quite reassuring.
Brilliant. I mean, that's what you hope for. That's the editor nailing their job, really.
Yeah, and I think there's nothing wrong with submitting a draft that you don't think is quite right. I think it's better in a way to have quite a view of it where I know this is a problem, but I'm going to submit it anyway so that you can help me solve the problem. I think if you are submitting something you think this is perfect, this it will just be typos that are getting corrected, then you're not going to have a great experience.
No, because you're going to go in not wanting to change anything. So when changes are suggested, you'll probably want to push back on those a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's important to be open to change with your editor. You don't have to agree with them all, as I'm learning book by book, but there's, an editor isn't just it isn't just suggesting changes for fun or because they're bored. It's because they're looking at it with a slightly different eye, and eventually it all comes together. It
does, exactly. Editors are very clever people. They know what they're doing.
They do.
Yeah. And before we get on to the final question, I just have one more question to ask you, which is anyone listening who is looking to follow a sort of similar, I mean, you've had a very sort of personal and exciting career path, but anyone looking to get into being a columnist or writing for blogging and things like that, what advice would you give them?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, does people still start blogs? Do they? I keep reading every 3 years or so that blogs are dead, blogging's over, long form, writing is, nobody cares. But I don't think that's true, and I hope it's not true. I think if you want to, I think it's about finding a voice and establishing it and finding a niche. And I think, I don't know, you have to ask my readers, wouldn't you? But I think why I was so successful at the blogging thing is that while I wasn't doing anything that people hadn't done before, going on dates and blogging about them and bitching about them, whatever, I was doing it in a slightly different way. That was why Belle de Jour was so successful, because what she did just had not been done with, she obviously was a great talent, but with just the way she wrote it and the way she presented the material was just so different and unlike anything that had been seen before. Yeah. And while I'm not suggesting in any way, shape or form that that's what the Guyliner was, there wasn't anybody else doing it like I did it, which was, I suppose, a lot of the dating blogs I read before I started mine were quite bitchy and, very much presented themselves as the star, and, that the people they were going on dates with were horrible and, the villain of the story. And that's just not, and to be honest, I presented myself more often than not as the villain of the story. It was my hang-ups that were causing all the problems, blah, blah, blah. So I think that's why it became successful. So find your niche.
Yeah.
And if you have to do something that everybody else is doing, just do it in a way that is unique to you. Your tone of voice is the most important thing, because it is uniquely yours. And what you will find is when you develop that voice is that people will want to hear it talking about anything.
Yeah.
And that's how I got a lot of my freelance gigs as the Guyliner, because people were just really interested in, I wonder what the Guyliner would think of that, or I've been waiting to hear your take on that. And there's no greater honor than that. But to do that, you have to remain true to your voice and sometimes not do things that you probably shouldn't do. And hopefully you'll get noticed. I see it more and more happening online. People are getting noticed. The breaks are coming. Mm-hmm. You do have to be quite online, I suppose. And if you're not fond of Twitter or Instagram, then it might take you a bit longer, because that's where, there are people out there waiting to read your writing and to become entranced by it or whatever. And all you have to do is put it out there. Yeah. That's what I did.
That's great advice, not just for people wanting to follow a similar path as you, but also just writing in any form. I think
go into it not expecting it to make you rich or famous. I'm neither of those things, by the way. I'm not saying that I'm rich or famous, but you go into it as an outlet, with the hope that you will find some either like-minded individuals or people will just enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah.
And if the rest happens, then all to the good. But it can happen, and I am seeing it happen. It's happened before me, and it's happening since me. Yeah. And some truly wonderful writers are being discovered through social media and through blogs. But the only way you can do it is by pressing send on that piece of work yourself.
Indeed. You have to put yourself out there.
You do. It's such an old cliche. It's a really dating cliche as well, isn't it, actually?
Yeah.
God, it always comes back to dating. But it's true in this instance. It is true, because no one is going to break into your house and search under your mattress for your diary.
Exactly. Yes, indeed. Great advice. And that brings us on to the final question, which, as always, is, Justin, if you were stranded on a desert island with a single book, which book would you take?
So do I know I'm about to be stranded on this desert island? Because, am I taking a book with me? Should I, and any travels, take a book with me just in case? Right, okay.
You're aware of your exile.
That helps me choose. You have to think about weight in your luggage and that kind of thing. So I think I thought, because I listened to the podcast and I've heard what other people have said and some good answers and all that kind of thing. And I really thought about this. Should you take a thick book so that you can while away the hours, or a book that reminds you of a better time? So I decided I would take with me The Secret Diary of Adrian Mole, aged 13 3/4. Now, can I have the second book as well? They are kind of one book. The Growing Pains.
Someone else took Adrian Mole, so if you take the second one and you add it to the library, then both will be there on the island.
Oh, hang on. Who else is on this island?
Well, no one's on it, but I like to imagine that all the books stay there and they accumulate. And
can I choose another one then if someone's chosen that?
Yeah, sure.
Right, okay.
Or you take the second one and you slowly build up the anthology.
Oh no, the first one's so much better though.
It's an excellent staple of anyone's
Who chose
childhood. That? You've put me on the spot, and I've had a lot.
Oh,
of
don't
guests.
worry. I'll find out myself. I'll go back and listen. Okay, right. Okay, I will take Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca.
Oh, okay, yeah.
This could not. It's such a strange. It's probably my favorite book, or at least one of. It's definitely one of my favorite books, and I talk about it all the time. And if I'm ever asked what my favorite book is, I usually go for Rebecca, purely because it could not have been possibly further from my own life. It's about a load of rich, spoiled people who don't have any actual problems, but create them for themselves, living in the 1920s. But it is an absolute masterpiece, and is probably the first ever book to describe imposter syndrome so perfectly.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, it's always called a gothic romance, but I honestly don't think it's remotely romantic. And it's about a young woman who remains nameless throughout the book, who meets older than her widower, whose wife died in mysterious-ish circumstances a year before, and he is said to be devastated by her death. And they get married at a whirlwind romance. What did I say? Whirlwind. Oh, good Lord. Whirlwind. So they have a whirlwind romance, and he takes her back to his sprawling, beautiful estate in Cornwall called Mandalay, and she is all of a sudden the lady of the manor, except she's about 23 or something and vastly inexperienced and completely out of her depth and completely haunted by the spectre of this beautiful, socially articulate, popular first wife who is called Rebecca. And it is an incredible book. That would be the one. And I would just kind of read it and imagine that, to be honest, my favourite character in it isn't actually in it. It's Rebecca. She sounds amazing. I can see why they all miss her. But as usual, there's an absolutely fantastic twist, which, even though the book is over 80 years old, I would not want to spoil. And
yes.
I've reread it and never get bored. So I think I would have to take Rebecca with me.
Well, it's a great choice. Didn't they made a movie recently of it?
Unfortunately, there have been several adaptations of this seminal work, with the latest being an absolute dullfest, starring two of the biggest dreary wardrobes enacting Armie Hammer, who, well, less said about him the better, and Lily James, neither of whom I'm a particular fan of, and it was really horrible.
As always, everyone, read the book, don't watch the film.
Please read the book. I mean, you know what, actually, if you need to channel some anger or whatever, read the book and enjoy the book, and then watch the Armie Hammer, Lily James adaptation and feel the fire.
I think that's called hate watching.
Hate watch it, but please have an ambulance on standby in case it gets too much for your ticker, because it is truly egregious what they did to it.
Amazing. And that about rounds it off, just where I wanted to end. Thank you so much, Justin, for coming on and sharing your experience and your journey with writing and everything that you've been up to. It's been really great chatting with you.
Thank you, Jamie. I've had a great time.
And for everyone listening, to keep up with everything that Justin is doing, follow him on Twitter and Instagram at The Guyliner, and head over to the website, theguyliner.com, to keep up with the blog and the dating things like that. It's great stuff. Also, the Fake Up is out as of airing this episode. Go and get your hands on it. It's going to be hilarious. It's going to be brilliant. You won't regret it. You can also get both of the other books available now in all your usual places. To make sure you don't miss an episode of this podcast, follow us on Twitter at Right and Wrong UK and on Instagram at Right and Wrong Podcast. Thanks again to Justin, and thanks to everyone listening. We'll catch you in the next episode.